let's talk about one of the biggest rivalries in Washington. No, I'm not talking about political parties. I'm talking about a power struggle that was baked right into the U.S. Constitution, the constant showdown between the president and Congress. This isn't just political drama. It's a fundamental conflict that shapes everything.
Okay, so to really get this, let's start with a powerful idea from the Supreme Court. Back in 1952, Justice Robert Jackson basically gave us a roadmap. What he was saying is, think of it like this. A president is at their strongest when they have Congress on their side. But when they go against Congress, that's when their power is at its absolute weakest. And that tension, well, that's what we're diving into today.
You see, the folks who wrote the Constitution did this on purpose. They were actually trying to create friction. Think about it. They make the president the commander-in-chief, but then they turn around and give Congress the sole power to actually declare war. They give the president this vague executive power, but then they hand Congress the ultimate trump card, the power of the purse. It's this really clever design that ensures a permanent tug of war, so no one side can ever get too powerful.
So our first battleground is a huge one. It's about who has the final say on sending U.S. troops into harm's way. This is where that constitutional clash gets really visible and where the stakes are literally life and death.
You know, after the Vietnam War, which dragged on for years with a lot of controversy, Congress basically said enough. They felt the balance of power had shifted way too far towards the president. So their big response was this: the War Powers Resolution. It was a direct shot, an attempt to grab the reins back and put a check on a president's power to go it alone. At the very heart of this law is a simple rule. If the president sends troops into a conflict, they have just 48 hours to formally report it to Congress. The whole idea is to force transparency, to make sure Congress is never again kept in the dark. But the big question is, has it actually worked? And the answer is, for the most part, yeah, they do file the reports. But here's where it gets really interesting. The real story isn't that they're reporting, but on what grounds they're acting. When you look at the data, it tells a fascinating story about how presidents have navigated, and maybe even gotten around, this law. So get this. Since 1973, there have been exactly 38 reports filed for the most serious reason, because U.S. forces were put directly into hostilities or a situation where a fight was about to break out. These are the big ones, the exact scenarios the law was designed for. And this is the kicker. Out of those 38 serious reports, a whopping 34 of them were justified by presidents saying they were acting on their own authority as commander-in-chief. Only 4, just 4, were based on a specific green light from Congress. You can see the pattern right there. So what does this all mean? Well, it means that while presidents are following the letter of the law, they're filing the paperwork, they are consistently ignoring its spirit. They're basically saying, thanks for the input, but I have the power to do this anyway. And over the decades, this has led to a major expansion of presidential power in military matters.
All right, let's switch gears from tanks and troops to dollars and cents. Our next battleground is the power of the purse. You know the saying, follow the money? Well, in Washington, this is probably Congress's single most powerful weapon against the president.
On paper, it seems really straightforward, right? Congress passes the laws, Congress sets aside the money, or appropriates it, and then the president's job is to spend that money as Congress directed. It's part of their constitutional duty to take care that the laws be faithfully executed. Simple. But what if it's not so simple? What happens when a president just doesn't spend the money? This is a move called impoundment, and it's a direct challenge. It turns the power of the purse into a major constitutional battleground. Now, Congress has a few tools to fight back. First, there's the Constitution itself, which gives them the power to tax and spend. But to make things crystal clear, they also passed a law, the Impoundment Control Act, which explicitly tells the president, you can't just decide not to spend money we've already approved. And this isn't just a dusty old debate. It happened very recently. The Trump administration decided to freeze foreign aid money that Congress had already signed off on. Their argument was that their role in foreign policy gave them the authority to hit pause. This, of course, set off a huge firestorm over who really has the final say. Okay, for our final battleground, we're talking about people. Specifically, who gets to run all the different parts of the federal government. The president gets to nominate people, sure, but the Senate has to give its advice and consent. And when the Senate says no, some presidents have reached for a very controversial tool. It's called a recess appointment. Now, this was originally designed for a time when senators on horseback might take months to get back to Washington. It was a practical way to keep the government running. But in the modern era, it's been transformed into a political weapon to get around a Senate that's blocking nominees. And you can see just how much things escalated. What used to be a rare event became a go-to tactic. President Reagan made 240 recess appointments. President George W. Bush made 171. They were using this old, dusty provision as a way to completely bypass the Senate's authority.
So, faced with this, what did the Senate do? Just take it? Nope. They came up with a pretty ingenious and kind of weird countermove to protect their power. They started holding what are called pro forma sessions. This is wild. One senator would walk into the chamber, gavel in, wait a few seconds, and then gavel out. By doing this, they could argue that the Senate was never technically in recess. No recess appointments. They effectively closed the loophole.
Well, this whole fight went all the way to the Supreme Court. And in a rare, unanimous 9-0 decision, the court's message was incredibly simple and clear. The Senate is in session when it says it is. And just like that, the court sided with the Senate, effectively ending the recess appointment as a political superweapon. So when you look at these battles over war, over money, over people, you see that this balance of power isn't some fixed point. It's a living, breathing thing. It's a constant negotiation, a push and pull, with each side always testing the boundaries. And honestly, that's exactly how it was designed to work.
But why should we care about all this constitutional back and forth? I mean, is it just an academic debate for lawyers and politicians? Not at all. The outcome of these power struggles can have massive, real-world consequences, as a chilling hypothetical scenario shows.
Just imagine waking up to that headline. It's a hypothetical, but it's based on the very real claims of presidential authority we've been talking about. A president, believing they have the inherent power, launches a major military strike without a single vote from Congress. This scenario shows you just how high the stakes can get when that constitutional balance is thrown out of whack.
And that really brings us to the fundamental question we're left with. The founders designed this system of checks and balances for a world of sailing ships and muskets. Can that same design, that same built-in friction, still work effectively in the 21st century with its lightning-fast global crises? That is the great unanswered question at the heart of this unending power struggle.